Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's discussion about what most advisors miss in their discovery process and how to fix it. I am joined by Chris Holman, executive coach at Horse's Mouth, and the author of the upcoming book, the eminently upcoming book, Discovery Shift: Why Talking Less and Listening More Wins Business. Chris, thank you for joining me today.
You're
Um,
welcome.
you've just completed writing Discovery Shift, which is now it's at the printer and it's going to be available for purchase in the next few weeks or so. Maybe you can start us off in today's discussion, sharing, what motivated you to write Discovery Shift.
Doug, thank you. I thought you were going to ask me a question like that.
Hmm.
Here's what I can tell you. First off, let me indulge me for a minute because I want to take us back, me back, you back 44 years to 1981. Why 1981? That was the year I passed my Series 7. Point of reference, the day I passed my Series 7, check this out. The Dow was at 780, 780. Long-term treasury bonds were at 15%. Mortgage rates were at 18.5%. Inflation was at 10%. Interesting economic times. I mentioned that because I was a stockbroker then. That was an okay term. It wasn't a bad name. But here's the thing. Back then in the 80s, we didn't have discovery calls. We were full-on salespeople, even though most of us, we hated being called salespeople. But we'd call strangers on the phone, and this is how we opened accounts. And we'd lead with what we thought were safe, simple ideas: utility stocks, muni bonds, money market funds. Doug, money market funds in 1981 were paying 17%. And we opened accounts with money market funds. And the goal was simple: open the account with one transaction. There was no attempt to understand what people wanted to achieve. We didn't ask questions about their goals, fears, or aspirations. We asked for the order. So I wanted to give you that context and history. It's behind me, thankfully. Let's fast forward to where we are right now. Financial advice is way different. Investors are way different. I'm different. I've been a professional coach now for 20 years, and I'm really, really curious into how advisors do make connections with other people, clients and prospects. And sorry for the long-winded answer. It's this curiosity that led me to write the book.
Okay, it sounds like maybe sort of very transactional uh, in nature, what you've described for us. So, in terms of the discovery, process, what did it look like, 4 decades ago? Um, I mean, were you discovering much?
No, but let me talk about the evolution from where it was then. As I said earlier, the whole idea was simply to open the account. We were salespeople. That was the idea. Very little discovery. But in the 80s and into the 90s, it began evolving. Financial planning came into the fore. CFP designation started to take hold. And thankfully, the profession began to mature. We moved from pitching products to building plans. Discovery, such as it was, shifted from the sales pitch to the intake form. And the intent was good. We wanted to be more professional, sound more professional, but what happened was the discovery process got really mechanical. Instead of persuading people, prospects, we began collecting data points. Reading became about filling in blanks, incomes, assets, liabilities, instead of really understanding the human being behind them.
Okay, so maybe you want to take us up, kind of set the stage for us, take us up to now and how the discovery process you think has kind of evolved up to this point, and maybe what we might have lost even over the years, over recent time.
Yeah. I don't know if we've lost a whole lot. What I will say this is that we develop, there's a blind spot. And this is another motivation for writing the book. So when I started coaching advisors 20 years ago, it hit me that both eras, the sales-driven era and the data-driven era, Doug, I think they have the same flaw. Neither paid a whole lot of attention to the person across the table. Both centered on what the advisor needed to accomplish. And that's the blind spot. It doesn't see, you see, it doesn't really matter whether you're chasing a transaction like we did in the 80s or completing a fact finder like we do more and more now. If the process revolves around you, you being the advisor, I think you're missing the point.
Okay, maybe you have an example to share with us. Do you have any real world examples of advisors you've worked with that can kind of illustrate um, uh, what's going on?
I do. And actually, this is an example. It was maybe part of the origin story of the book and also other things that I've done. I've led, for example, discovery workshops and such. But this was now, what, 6, 7, 8 years ago now. I met an advisor through a horse's mouth workshop. He was a really smart and very effective in his own way advisor. He was a salesperson. He was really effective, Doug, at getting people into the room initially, but none of them were becoming clients. And he and I began talking, and I learned more about his discovery meetings, what he was doing and what he wasn't doing. And here's what I realized what was happening. He was intimidating his prospects, not intentionally, but his default mode was interrogation by why. His questions, the questions that he was asking prospects were, why do you own this? Why do you have so much cash? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? I think we all know, I hope all of us know that why questions can make us really defensive. Yet this particular advisor, he thought he was showing confidence, but what he was really showing was control. And after some coaching, he softened his tone. He dropped the why questions altogether. And everything became different for him. In fact, within a matter of months, he had his best revenue month ever, which was really important to him. He couldn't get that sales blood out of the system. But anyway, that's when I realized it wasn't so much about sales technique, it was more about human safety.
Okay, and you've said that exchange working with that advisor was really a seminal experience for you in learning more about the discovery meeting process and led you to start the Discovery Lab. And as part of that project, Chris, I know that you've recorded more than 100 real discovery meetings, which, that's a lot of discovery meetings. And I'm sure you learned a thing or two from that experience. Did you want to kind of give us some of those findings that stood out to you?
Doug, I do. I do want to share it with you and who's ever listening here. And the data was really eye-opening to me. Uh, I saw that even really good advisors were missing the mark. So, for example, on average, we recorded these 100 meetings and we recorded things like talk time, how much advisors spoke. On average, they spoke 70% of the time. I recorded every question that advisors asked in these discovery meetings. 90%, 90 plus percent actually, were of the questions were closed-ended or leading questions. Closed-ended questions being yes, no questions, or questions that where the prospect could use one or two words and respond. Um, and almost no advisor followed up in these 100 recordings. In fact, only one advisor asked a follow-up question. So the meetings felt comfortable to the advisor, but they weren't connective. They felt productive to the advisor in many cases, but they weren't very personal. And here's the thing, when we play these recordings back to the advisors, when we debriefed about what happened, a lot of them were really stunned and surprised. They truly thought they'd been listening well, but the talk time data, the closed question data, the missed cues, it told a far different story.
Yeah, Chris, and I know uh, during the discovery meeting mistakes webinar that you and Sean give, we have a poll where we ask advisors to kind of rate the amount of time that they spend talking versus their would-be clients. And we know from the results of this poll that advisors are totally wrong in terms of how much time they're actually talking versus most advisors think that they're talking way less than they actually are. So I'm wondering, along those lines, what has surprised you about, how different advisors, how their perceptions are compared to the reality of how they conduct their discovery meetings.
Uh, Doug, thank you for reminding me of the poll. You and I have done a number of webinars and we've done a number of polls. And so we've now polled, I think we have more than 4,000 responses. And the question, Doug, that we asked advisors were, how much time do you think, we're asking them to self-assess, how much time do you think you're talking in discovery meetings? 87% of the advisors in our polls said they think they're talking 50% of the time or less, 87%. Here's the funny thing. It's not so funny. Here's the thing. Of the 100 recordings we've done, not one advisor has talked less than 50% of the time. So that gap is interesting to me. And getting back to your question, advisors think they're connecting, but prospects don't feel the same thing. In fact, in many cases, they don't feel heard. They feel processed. And that's the gap, the distance between what we think we're communicating and what the person actually experiences. It's invisible to us in the moment. And Discovery Shift, that book, the book I've written and the research I've done, it's about closing this gap. It's about turning the meeting from data gathering into trust building.
Yeah, and this gap that you mentioned between, the intention that advisors have, right, and the impact they're actually having, this has a very real cost in terms of how the meeting goes and their rate of bringing on new business. Did you want to put that into practical terms for advisors listening right now, Chris?
Sure. I think in the first place, I wouldn't. This is going to sound like heresy, but I don't focus so much on conversion rates. It's an outcome. We all want higher conversion rates. We all want to magically convert everyone in the first conversation we have. But the thing about what we're talking about here, it's a two-way street. For example, I think better discovery also means that the advisor is being more discerning about who they want to bring on board. You don't want to bring on every person you meet with in an initial meeting. Every advisor knows all it takes is one or two toxic client to really, really give bad days to you. So discovery is a two-way street. It's a matter of finding better clients, but also having better conversations such that you can find the right clients, the ideal clients, if you were.
Yeah, it sounds like a real mindset shift in your how you approach things mentally. Um, a shift, perhaps a discovery shift, which is
Hey, there's an idea.
yeah, yeah, which is of course, the title of your upcoming book, Chris. So this shift that advisors have to make, okay, in their discovery processes, how does an advisor go about making that shift from, them focused or advisor focused in the conversation to a more collaborative one, which, as you suggested, is where they should be going?
Yeah. In the first place, it may not happen overnight because what we're talking about neurological habits in our brain, our habits are driven by the neurons in our brain, and they don't disappear with a snap of a finger. But to make this shift, it starts with changing ownership. Here's what I mean. The prospect's voice. and their story should shape the direction of the meeting. The advisor shares but does not control the authorship of the insight that evolves and is revealed in the discovery meeting. And when the conversation feels equal, not hierarchical, trust emerges almost automatically. Discovery stops being a test, it becomes a partnership. And one thing to note here, this is really important. Some of you out there may be listening to me and saying, "All right, Holman, I don't know if I believe you, man." Here's the thing. This idea of collaboration and discovery isn't something I've dreamed up in my ivory coaching tower. I actually don't have an ivory coaching tower, but it's an interesting concept. Uh, Here's what I'm talking about. In an e-money survey done, I think, 2 years ago now, 78% of investors said they want to be actively involved in the planning process. 78%. In the same survey, 93% of advisors who describe themselves as highly collaborative reported receiving referrals. 93%. And this makes perfect sense to me, Doug, because referrals come from referable moments, moments where prospects and clients can share with others about what happened when they were talking to their advisor. And these referable moments, I think, are very often created in a collaborative discovery meeting.
So could you go give us a little more detail about how a really collaborative discovery meeting, what does that sound and feel like both for an advisor and the potential new client or clients on the other end of the table?
So for the advisor, let's start there. A collaborative discovery meeting, it feels lighter, less scripted, more spontaneous. And I really think that a collaborative discovery meeting, it allows advisors to take off the mask, be themselves, be human. For the client, it feels safe, safer. They feel like they're not being judged or directed or evaluated or assessed by the advisor. They feel like they're being seen. And when this happens, prospects hear it immediately. Their tone softens, the pace slows, the whole pace of the entire meeting slows. People reveal what's actually driving them, what's important to them, not just what's in their portfolios.
Yeah, a quick tangent too, Chris, that this sounds so familiar to advisors who get started in video. And a lot of times when they're making videos, they start off and they're everything has got to be super scripted out and they've got to deliver it just as they planned it. And when they get more and more, comfortable, they start to, like you said, be more loose and talk as they actually talk. And you notice it right away, and their videos are way more compelling because of it. So I just wanted to
Well,
mention that
well,
connection there.
no, thanks for that. That people choose advisors who are human. Um, they choose advisors who they want to be with. They don't want robots. Heck, let's talk about robots. We can find robots to work with. They don't want people who are not genuine. They want to talk with a person. They want to reveal themselves to a person who knows what they're talking about, but a person who is human.
Yeah. Does anything change when you make this shift and have more collaborative meetings? Do you start to attract a different kind of client with this approach?
I think you do. I think a couple of things happen, Doug. I think in the first place, advisors stop chasing the wrong clients. They move out of the mindset that I have to close every person who I'm meeting with. And they're themselves and they feel more comfortable in connecting with people who they like and trust, and in turn, like and trust them. So they're able to attract the right type of clients and build the right type of business, the type of clients who feel aligned with you, not sold to. Also, the conversations become more fulfilling. Conversion rates do go up. We've seen that. Not that that's the be all end all, but I think for Doug, the biggest shift is internal. Advisors finally feel like they're doing the work they came in the business to do.
Okay. Well, Chris, you've been in the industry for over 40 years. What is a realization from this work that surprised you personally the most?
Yes. I boil it, Doug, I think I'd boil it down to this. Um, Discovery isn't something you do before the relationship. It's not a preface. It's not an appetizer. Discovery is the relationship. It's taken me 44 years to figure that out and see that clearly, but I can say that pretty emphatically. Discovery is the work.
Great. And so, for advisors who are listening and they want to learn more about your book, Discovery Shift, um, it's not available quite yet, um, but we put together a form where you can go to. I just put it on the screen here. You can go to horsesmouth.com/discovery notify and put your email address there, and we'll notify you when it's available. And as a little thank you, Chris has put together a list of some major insights from his research on discovery meetings um, that you'll get when you put in your when you join the notification list. So, Chris,
Well,
is there any final words you wanted to share?
sure. So I talked earlier about being human. Being human is maybe not being as slick as maybe you'd like to be. Doug, this is you and I being slick. If we were
Yeah,
really slick here, we'd have this whole data gathering, fact-finding machine. We pop up on the screen right now. We don't have it. The good news is that stay connected to Horse's Mouth. Well, the book it's being printed. It's being shipped to the printer as you and I speak, and it will be available to all of you. The book's not going away, so don't sweat it. It'll be available to you, and I'm sure we'll have many more conversations like this, Doug.
absolutely. Okay, well, that's gonna do it for this conversation. Chris, thank you for joining me, and everybody listening, thank you for your time and attention, and we'll see you next time.